Hello. Welcome to the live I am calling my 2021 Life Makeover, Neurodivergent Edition. I have written things up and I'm going to do a lot of reading off of the screen to keep this comprehensible, timely, and to avoid getting distracted by comments. If you missed the stories that inspired this live, here is the best TLDR I can give you. I have an au pair, but she is not a good match for my son due to his specific needs. I also have issues with emotional regulation due to borderline personality traits, and I have not experienced being the kind of mother I want to be without help to give me the space to stay calm and grounded. I also have an ADD brain and spend most of my days frantically trying to focus my attention to get the things done that will create the feeling of ease I yearn for in my life. I put up some stories saying I wasn't sure what to do because I already feel like I'm treading water and I couldn't see a path forward that didn't backtrack to some really difficult times in our household. It was a big share that contained a lot of things I've wanted to say out loud for a while now. Thankfully, I only experienced a few meanie faces after yesterday's stories. It really was, I think, only 2 or 3 messages that communicate a person who themselves is in a lot of pain. That throughout my entire experience dealing with trolls, the best thing I have learned is how much negativity that comes at us doesn't really have anything to do with us and is really about someone trying to express something about themselves. And I feel a lot of hope for humanity that sharing what I shared in the way I shared it was not meant with a torrent of just abuse. Isn't that positive? Mostly it was overwhelming kindness and love. So much love. I see you, I hear you, and in some ways I am you. It is very scary to open up in this way, but it's only those who are the most unhealthy that find this kind of share to be a threat or a weak point for the attack. And if you choose to open up about something that's really hard for you, please keep that in mind. That those responses you get back, that they are not always about you, and that there is never anything wrong with struggling, with not being everything that you wish you were, with having faults and flaws and deficits and weaknesses. That's not the same as not trying. That's just being a person. Several of the things I'm about to tell you were inspired by the things you shared with me. I feel very supported in a way I really needed. I won't be looking for comments, and I doubt I'll take questions at the end, but I'm going to get real with you and say that those hearts that pop up in the bottom corner of the screen are really meaningful, and I'll take whatever you feel inspired to send. All right, let's kick this off with a little bit of talk about what I now recognize was going on yesterday. I was in a black and white thinking trap. This isn't working, and the only option is to do something entirely different. And especially after so much of the focus of my life since September or October has been trying to create a life for us that is a good fit. And the thought of taking a big portion of the foundation for what we've been doing, even though it's not working, it's working better than many things that have in the past. And so I was so stuck because I couldn't move away from the idea that my only option was to just sort of burn it all down and start over. And talking things through on here, through sharing, and then through DMs, and really made a big difference for me in thinking through how this can be about making changes, but not burning it all down. We don't have a diagnosis yet, but that doesn't mean we can't do what we can to get him the help that aligns with what we see and believe about our son. And for context for this experience, I took him to his GP at 3 years old and expressed that the experience I was having felt a lot like what I was reading online about autism. She handed me some papers, a stapled set of papers, told me to fill it out. And when she looked at it, she said, "He is not autistic. That's not it," and sent me away. She didn't offer me any other help or any investigation into what it was. She just told me that that wasn't it. And I recognize now that I was over-reliant on that one encounter with a GP. I just didn't understand at the time. I didn't have the perception that I have now, that healthcare workers are people with their own biases and backgrounds and education and opinions and perspectives. And that, of course I wish I could go back in time and tell this version of me who had another baby and was so sleep deprived and having such a difficult time with this child that like your instincts. I feel like every time we hear these stories, it's the same thing. It's the mother saying, "I felt something." And yeah, I don't have a time machine. I just have right now and everything moving forward. And I didn't have community support around other voices telling me that this was something they suspected. It was a long string of doctor's visits and parent-teacher conferences, and over and over again saying like, "Hey, do you think there's things here? Like, do you feel like we're missing anything?" And no one else ever thought that. So I don't need to, this is why I'm trying to read off the thing so that it doesn't turn into a long rambling thing. And so moving out of black and white thinking helped me understand that not having a diagnosis does not mean, this is a better way to say it. We can move forward with changes that help him and us with the information we have right now. And then, depending on what the assessment says, we can make other changes later. So, we are not comfortable with school. I just saw, if you want to comment to each other, the comments don't stick with the video later, so you're really only talking to each other, but I don't have any objection to parents sharing with each other. And if you wanted to share, I may at the tail end just scroll back through. We are not comfortable with school. The UK, South African, and Brazilian variants are very worrying. And they're just beginning to spread in an environment where we have absolutely no testing and tracking protocols in place still. I'm starting to hear anecdotal evidence about parents sending their kids to school sick and lying about it or being deceptive because parents really need more help. Everybody needs more help. Whether those parents are sending those kids to school with colds and flu or COVID. And I just don't trust that school is going to be a safe place. And I definitely don't trust that school is going to be a consistent one. And for my son, who's really the subject of all of this, that consistency is so important. It would not be a solution or a fix to enroll him in an environment that immediately changes because of COVID. So whatever we do moving forward, I want to make sure that it's a very good fit for him. But as far as social, both kids need more socially. This week, I saw a little girl walking past our house with what looked like it could be a nanny. And I ran out into the street. I was on the phone with my friend, and this child and this woman walked by. And I said, that little girl looks like she's the age of my daughter. And this is more of a retirement community. So you don't see, there are kids here. You just don't see a ton of them. And I was like, do you think I should run out and talk to her? And my friend's the kind to be like, yes, you do this, Jenna. You go out there, you make a friend for your daughter. And I like awkwardly, hello, can I talk to you for a second? And ask them if they lived in the area. Turns out it's an only child, 7 years old, who has been living alone through the pandemic, and her nanny has really been, her family is also very, very COVID cautious, and her nanny has been really her only friend or social outlet until she started, the little girl started school about 2 weeks ago. So she's on spring break. And I'm in the beginning stages of navigating a new relationship with this family where we have to talk through everyone's COVID comfort levels and establish this, frankly, kinda insane level of trust for people that you've never met before. I don't think we're having a societal conversation about people. We are not the only ones who ended up moving during the pandemic, and establishing an entirely new community in this environment is really difficult. So it is top of mind for us, and it is something I am really working at. But we are very concerned about the variants, and we just don't feel like the social, emotional needs and meeting them through something like school outweighs our concerns around the possible exposure to these variants. So, okay. And the other thing I just wanted to get into, partially because it'd be nice to connect with other parents who are dealing with this thing. So my son, he has a whole system around friendship and trust. And he has what he calls his tier 4 relationships. In therapy, he's described this as a set of tiers. And he keeps the majority of people down here. And then depending on how he feels about them, they can escalate upward. But this right here, up here, this is tier 4. And it is made up of like 7 or 8 people in the world, probably. It's really, really tiny. And as far as friends go, it's really just 2 people total. His friend he made in the Bay Area and his friend he made in Seattle. He also, he chooses, it seems to be a pattern. We move enough that I'm pretty sure there's a pattern here, that he moves somewhere, he uses his system to find a friend he trusts. Then he sort of cuts off from any additional access, and that's his person. And he focuses all of his time and energy on them. And he's very wary of additional relationships. Trusting people and feeling like they are safe is so important to him. It is, by the way, why the au pair dynamic is so tricky and damaging, because when it's not working, I have to talk a little quieter when it's au pair stuff. When it's not working, it's someone that we're kind of forcing into a tier where they don't belong, if that makes sense. Okay, let's see. I'm recognizing now that the year of COVID isolation has receded his social skills to the point where any interaction outside of our household members is a lot for him. We've had several rounds of talking about summer camp and parent-child therapy. His therapist does agree with me that working toward having him go feels like the right fit, but he is very hesitant to return to camp because he can't picture what it's going to be like this year in his mind. Lots of talk in therapy about what he really needs are expectations management, to be able to anticipate in as much detail as possible whatever environment he's about to enter into so that he can protect himself and keep himself safe. I called camp yesterday to ask if anyone had expressed interest in having some form of webinar where kids could ask questions about the things that are going to be the same or different. He said they didn't have anything planned like that and no other parents had expressed a desire for this, but they are sending out an FAQ that I'm hoping we can use to talk through and help him feel more comfortable. It's really new for him to actually express any hesitancy and to say these things out loud and help us better understand exactly what we're coming up against and why things are not working. I believe one of our biggest problems is an insecure attachment. I definitely think that he has an insecure attachment in many ways with his father as well. But he also has one with me because of my struggles around emotional regulation, especially when he was very, very young. And this manifests as a very extreme form of mommy pleasing. I don't know anything about what it's like to have a child who manifests in an oppositional defiance manner, because mine is much more of an extreme desire to align with everything about mom, all of her preferences and desires and beliefs, and he will deny himself almost anything he wants if he thinks it's something that I want something else for him. And often he is revealing after the fact that he was resistant to something or didn't try something or was apathetic about something because he had only agreed to do it to please me, even though I have tried my best to make clear that that's not how I want any decisions to be made, and I don't think that's a good idea. Yesterday we had a long talk about putting himself first, and that's really kind of what kicked all of this off, is that I had given them the assignment to go out and build these fairy houses, and this really should be a very fun day. And they took me out to show me what they had built, and they just squabbling in these ways that sounded to me like unmet needs. And in particular, one of their creations, my daughter had run up to it and showed me how it, showed me this fairy house, and then we walked away, and it was one where she had inserted something under the structure that my son had built. And then when we walked away, he removed all of her items from his structure. And when she saw this, she started sobbing. She just wanted to share this experience with him, and she wanted to run home by herself. I was hugging her and trying to comfort her, and she wanted to leave, and I stayed behind with him and opened up a conversation about, like, what's going on here, right? Walking around in the forest and building beautiful things in nature should not be filled with so much difficulty and pain. And that's when we really started to get into the ways that he doesn't feel he doesn't feel connection. He doesn't feel really seen or validated. And in addition to his to his feelings and his experiences as he describes them, I really see how he needs so much more structure and guidance around how to be a person. And I mean that in just so many ways. He needs, I keep flashing to, I just started watching that NBC show Parenthood, right? The TV series that was on a few years ago. And I keep flashing to that scene where, what's the hot girl cheerleader's name? Whatever her name is. Where she shows up as the therapist and the parents are just really skeptical that she's going to be able to do anything for their kid. And they're at the playground. They're watching her work with him. And the thing that she does is not only play with him and earn his trust, she shows him how to make a friend, how to engage with this new friend. She guides him through the experience, and this is what he needs. I mean, these are the things that we're seeing that really point us to, 8 years ago when I went in, and said, I just see signs of autism here. We have continued seeing them, but he's been forced to be in a position where he attempts to project something that is outside his capabilities, and how exhausting to live that way every day. Okay, I'm off my script. That keeps happening. And the only reason I want to stay on it is because I'm maybe halfway through. Okay, I wanted to touch on my partner, because I know there's just a lot of questions there, and I'm going to read strictly off the script to make sure I stay within the boundaries of our agreement around not making my social media life about him anymore. I've been making big life changes, and he's been making shifts of his own. Couples therapy has had an incredible impact on our conversational skills in a very short period of time. Last night, he opened up space for me to share where I was at, and it's absolutely essential understanding the borderline and the struggles around emotional regulation are crucial here. If you are also having the same struggles, there is so little talk from people who recognize this in themselves, and because there's so much stigma around borderline. And I see such a strong difference in our communication because I'm not exploding outward. I'm feeling uncomfortable inside with my feelings, and I didn't grow up in an environment that taught me what to do with that feeling. And I believe I have a genetic predisposition. That podcast I just linked to talks about signs that borderline is neurological, that there is a function in the brain that is happening. And so it is a skill you have to learn. It is no different than my son. Why would we be ashamed about these things in ourselves? I would never allow anyone ever to even say in my presence that there's something to be ashamed of about my son because of who he is. And I want to extend myself that same love and compassion and grace. I deserve the same. I deserve the same from my own parents, and he deserves it from me, and I deserve it from myself. And if you are in the same place, you deserve all of it too. All that love and compassion and grace, and being honest with yourself about what these things are. The thing that took me from this being a struggle to this being, the thing that took me from this consuming my life to this being something I am working on is that I learned what it was, and I was willing to understand how it affected me and how it affected other people. Don't let anyone make you feel like you have to hide this about yourself, because you will hide it. You will attempt to hide it from others. That shame is so toxic, and it will destroy your life. Okay, I'm off script again. I will do this many times because it feels so good. It feels so good to be able to talk about this. Last night, he opened space for me to share where I was at. And because I am better at my emotional regulation, and he is better at acknowledging and validating my difficult emotions, I didn't just change. We both did. He took on the evening stuff last night so I could go on a walk while talking to a friend, where I sobbed hysterically next to the Pebble Beach golf courses and screamed at the top of my lungs at the ocean. Felt very good. I will be repeating this many, many times. And by the time we finished our couples therapy this morning, I was ready to sit down and write all of this out. Which I did. I'm just going to make a quick ADD shift here. Which I did as part of a process that both updates you and gives my brain an exciting thing to latch onto, which helps me sit down and move through these things in a way that would be immensely difficult for me to do if I was trying to write it up just to solve my problems. This is kind of a new a new thing for me. I'm thinking a lot about how the motivation to share with others is something that I have carried a lot of shame around because it's such a strong desire for me, and there's a lot of social stigma around oversharing. But I actually think that the sharing is a kind of driver that helps me move through a process of organization and analysis and implementation that I might have a difficult time staying with if I didn't have the incentive of sharing, since I like to share. See how an understanding of the ADD brain can transform your life? It's the same thing with the borderline brain too. And since I'm tossing out borderline very freely now, it feels important to note that I believe borderline is a spectrum, and anyone who suggests it's either disorder or nothing is oversimplifying and lending to the perception that a genetic predisposition to borderline is something akin to a death sentence. It's not. That part is made up. That's not true. The part that's real is your experience. And facing it gives you so much more control over your experience. One important change in our dialogue about how to approach things. Our differences around finances have created this black and white au pair or nothing dialogue. The au pair really came out of, this isn't working and we need to get Jenna some help so that we're not just living in this constant roller coaster of explosions and hurt and explosions and hurt and explosions and hurt. We are no longer operating from that paradigm, and that makes all the difference. You get to see me making important changes, and I know you wonder about him. All of this is from my perspective, and I have to be careful about what I share, but know this. Over the last week, he has shown up for me as a partner in the ways I value most again and again. We are watching for and responding to each other's bids. We are turning toward each other, and it's hard right now. We're climbing up a mountain, but you can imagine us holding hands while we do it. And that is between when I spoke to you and now, that is one of the biggest shifts, is that I drew up a plan. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about some of the things I'm going to do after reading through all your DMs and thinking about that myself. But I didn't feel empowered to think through the next steps in the way I do now. And that's a really powerful shift that came from strong communication and two people who are really working to figure out how to manage a very difficult situation together. I don't have the kind of support I wish I had from the people you would think would be the people supporting me through this. There is a reason why it was particularly difficult to open up in this way, and those who recognize what I'm alluding to because they share the same experience, thank you for writing to me. As if this experience wasn't devastating enough, the way it unfolds is generally a mess of confusion and feelings of isolation. And by this experience, I mean what I'm dealing with my family of origin. That is all I can tell you about all of that. And if you get it, you get it, and it sucks. And I'll just end that one with #chosenfamily. And if you're having a hard time with the things I just said, we all write our own stories. And this is me writing mine. Everyone has the opportunity to show up and write their own. But I will no longer be operating in this very limited paradigm in order to preserve the false narratives of others. Okay. I just wrote some other stuff and I'm trying to decide if it's relevant. No, I think I'm gonna move to what's next. This is the part that I hope you hear as a thank you. I hope you hear it as a thank you. I know it can be, I don't think I owe anyone anything, but it can be distressing or difficult or upsetting to watch someone be so vulnerable in such a difficult position. And when it is something I can do, I see the follow-up as a way to acknowledge the contributions that were really impactful and meaningful, especially since writing back to everyone isn't within my capacity. And also, of course, there's so much of this that feels like an experience bred out of ignorance. And since I'm someone who feels very willing and actually I think gains, there's some uplight from a reflection. Not a fan of uplight on the face. I'm someone who really gains from sharing and connecting with other people. And so I hope this either helps feel validating in your efforts. And also if you are struggling with anything similar, if this helps you in any way, it takes a village. Thank you for being the village. Okay, so here is what we are going to do. Some of the things we're going to do moving forward. Spring break officially starts on Monday. And spring break in this context means taking a break from any academic achievements and gains outside of daily math and daily reading, because we just feel like it's really essential to have regular exposure to those things. And the goal here is to release all pressure possible from the valve within the current context. This is something I can do without making any other major changes and is fully in my control. It also allows me to redirect the au pair toward activities and spending her time in ways that are a better fit for her skill set. Taking her out of the things that are not working as well and really focusing her time and attention on adventures and being playful and having fun. I want to work at clearing my calendar similar to the way I did at the beginning of COVID. Was that a magical day for others? The day where you realized like, whoa, I have got all of these obligations and commitments, and none of them matter anymore. They just, poof, they just disappeared. I thought it was absolutely essential that I function this way. My whole life revolves around like making sure things get on my calendar and making sure I get things done and making sure I go to the places that I'm supposed to go to, that I said I would go to. And there was a day where I just said, oh, I mean, how is it that the virus was what I needed to give myself permission to just eliminate everything? So I want to force myself exercise like that, looking forward at the commitments I've made and just saying, this is outside of my capacity, let's take this off. I'm going to be looking for a weekly housekeeper. The fear of falling behind, specifically when you lump in all of this ADD stuff around struggling with time and with task prioritization and just not feeling a sense that I have any kind of organization or structure that's going to lead to these things getting done. Because I've been able to have a housekeeper, I think the most I've had so far is every other week. So I've experienced both the monthly and then the every other week. And I know that the days right before they come, it lessens my stress and worries about the state of the house. Especially, Flora, she would give my kids birthday presents. I went to her daughter's quinceañera. She was so lovely. I really miss Flora. It lessens the feeling that I have to stay up on this or else I'm going to fall behind, and then what am I going to do? So I think that a weekly housekeeper, and now that we're vaccinated, we're feeling more comfortable and the rates have dipped, that will just open up the space in my brain that could be devoted to other things right now. I'm going to request that we temporarily shift the focus of our partnership onto organization and life restructuring and away from recreation together. This is some of the parents' sacrifice side of things in order to get a handle on. We have such a nice flow around recreation in our family life that it is sad and hard to think of. It's not giving it up. That's even now I was going to use that language. It's sad to think of putting a pause on that. And this, I'm not talking about the kids. I'm not saying that not spending any recreation time with the kids, because obviously that's a part of what we're trying to solve for, is meeting more of their needs. But making that period of time, that family time, much more concentrated and focused and much more about quality over quantity. And then as partners, really digging into how we can knock out and address the things on our plate that are just getting in the way of moving forward with our life. I am feeling the least on top of things that I have maybe since we moved into the Chow house. I know that moving is very disruptive and difficult to catch up, but I'm feeling it particularly bad this time. We are, as of this point, going to be not having any kind of rematch conversation with our au pair. What we will be doing is shifting her focus more over to our daughter. I already made a little bit of this change today and it worked great. They were doing activities this afternoon and I said, son, you are talking to me today. And since this was all prompted by a conversation that he shared with me, I was able to say, I heard you yesterday. These are some changes that we're trying to make to meet the needs that you expressed. And so many of you pointed out, like, could you shift things so that she at least lessens your load with one of the kids and then you use that amount of time to focus on your daughter. And I did see this comment. She is with us for 5 more months, I think. And part of this is that when you cancel the program, you lose a fairly big chunk of money in terms of your agency fees. And it is also really, 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 I've done it once now. It's really hard, and the au pairs, it's difficult to help them understand why. And I would much rather not do that. On top of not losing the help, it is my preference to try to figure out how to make things work. Okay. The next thing on my list is to find someone trained in something. Probably ABA therapy, but I'm just at the beginning of figuring all of this out. Let's see. Okay. Finding a therapist for our son it doesn't have to be therapist, helper, nanny, companion, someone, trained individual, to spend time with him throughout the week and help him feel more comfortable leaving the house, help become his friend. I don't mean become his friend like they have to be his best friend in case, right? But someone that I trust understands how to provide friendship and companionship in a safe environment that he can trust. That's the goal, to give him this experience after not feeling that for a long time. There is I've mentioned just how bonkers amazing the healthcare benefits are. There's still a lot of stuff to figure out. Ooh, yes, like a mentor. I was saying I can't help but get distracted. I was saying to his therapist that, what's it called? The big brothers, little brothers, whatever that thing is. There's a lot of options that I think would be really great. And one of them that seems like it would be really amazing is some kind of figure in his life who can be sort of like a model for the kind of person he wants to be. Because he has revealed that the reason he really loves watching FGTV, it's partially because this shit is so damn addictive for kids. But when he talks about FGTV, he talks about how he's a person who is neurotypical. He names several things, but he's a person who's admittedly neurotypical, and how great is it that my son sees himself this way, and then he sees someone else, and that just this can be a positive experience for him. And then he also talks about, how much he loves that this man really plays with his kids and is really family oriented. And I can see that he's really desiring someone who provides that kind of connection, like someone in his life who would be like this character, I'm going to call it a character, right? This character that he has access through on YouTube. There is a concierge at our healthcare provider that specializes in autism. I mean, how amazing, a concierge service that specializes. And access to ABA therapy, occupational therapy, speech therapy, psychotherapy, and nutrition counseling are all covered at in-network costs, even if you go to someone out of network. We can't access those therapies at in-network costs, though, until we have a diagnosis code. So this is something that we can move on. If our suspicions are correct, this is something we can move on after we move through the autism assessment process. He has his first assessment at a clinic focused on children's mental health in May, I think. It's sometimes in 5 to 6 weeks of something like that is how far they were scheduling out. And then after that, they give us the results, and they do not treat autism there. But if they also see the same signs, they are a local provider who will help guide us through the process. So between our insurance and this particular clinic or group, I feel confident that we're going to arrive somewhere. But it's just going to take some time. This process takes time. Okay, but before we have a diagnosis, we can draw on two very important resources. Access to Rethink. This is a service where a team of board certified behavioral analysts offer 20 free consultations and a website with lessons available to help with parenting. So Rethink is a resource provided through my partner's work that is specifically for any child with special needs, and you don't have to have a diagnosis to access the resources available. Someone wrote me in with the suggestion to look for online training for the au pair. How genius is that? I can't train her. I know I can't, but professionals can, probably. I mean, this is not going back on like these ideas around kind of separating them a little bit more, but like that we can. She's very, very underutilized, very, very, and so. I realized through Rethink that we already have what we need to do this. And it is this amazing platform with entire lesson plans focused on individual skills. And it starts with skills like how to help the kid learn how to do an art project, how to help them learn how to use the toilet, how to help them learn how to do just everything. They have school skills, life skills, personal care skills, whatever. So this thing is really amazing, and I feel so much better now that I've moved into that. And then care.com membership is also provided. Like I said, a care.com membership is also provided, and there is apparently some sort of internal spreadsheet at the company kept with recommendations from other employees. So people in the area who've utilized care.com are maintaining an online spreadsheet that's available internally within the company, telling their real experiences with the people they've hired. And just wow. I've looked into this and started the process of looking into this enough that I know it's a complete minefield. And as Layla said, the autism diagnosis process, it's really, really complex. And yes, it generally runs between $2,000 to $3,000, and many families are paying more. Or it's an experience that you access through free or reduced price services, and you often have to wait for a very long time. Okay, I'm almost done. The last two is that my friend inspired my conversation with my friend inspired kind of an interesting exercise that I wanted to tell you about, because I have a feeling that if you are also over functioning, like how do I say this? If you are also getting indicators from people in your life that you're holding yourself to a higher standard than you need to, but you, like me, feel a lot of anxiety around releasing that pressure, because what if you don't keep trying and then you miss something? Or, I'm dealing with a lot of feelings around missing a lot of stuff, around so many problems created by things I didn't know or understand. And so there's definitely an element of overcompensating. If I keep throwing myself at this over and over again, something's got to shift and something's got to change through just sheer brute force on my part. And it is not working and it's not changing. And so I'm going to try an exercise where I create a portrait of myself. I don't mean literal picture. I mean through writing out how I spend my time and what I'm focusing on. And I'm attempting to sketch out what it would look like for me to do the absolute bare minimum as a mom. I know, Some of you are like, oh gosh, I gotta tell her that she's already doing this, right? You actually don't know that. That's a lie you told yourself. So you don't need to type that because you don't know. But what my suspicion and my friend's suspicion too is that by doing this exercise, my version of like, this would be the absolute bare minimum. And if I do less than this, then they're never gonna be able to function as productive, happy, fulfilled adults, and it will all be my fault and everything will be ruined. My suspicion is when I create this portrait, what I'm going to get back, which I can also, I can talk to my partner about, I can talk to my therapist about. I'm fairly certain I'm going to get back this to you're still putting too much pressure on yourself. Because I can see how I make things harder in a lot of ways because of my fears around missing things, and just that if I relax, if I have ease, if I'm not always, whipping, flagellating myself, like I am the one who is on the cart with the horse in the front, just constantly being, and no, I'm my inner critic or something. I don't know. The pressure I'm putting myself is the figure sitting on the wagon, and I'm the horse, and I'm just whipping myself into exhaustion. And we're not getting where we want to go. And so what if I found a way to help other people help me think through what I really need to be focusing on and how I need to be spending my time in order to really meet my children's needs. And then the last thing is, again, similar to what I was mentioning, like really doing a strip back of, I want to do this. This is something I'd like to accomplish. That would be nice. That's interesting to me. Oh, that's great. Really pulling back on how much I'm committing myself and allowing myself a lot of space for this stuff, for restructuring things, for organizing, for getting at the things that are really contributing to the many ways where I feel like I just can't get my footing right now. But I do feel so much better than I did yesterday. I want to end by expressing one more time. I want to end by saying that I wish there was a safe and easy and fast way for me to share like to see how much love and care other women and mothers are willing to extend. Like, the internet is hard and life is hard, and we're not in situations where, like, I would go to the park and I'd be having a conversation and someone would say, "Thanks, Layla. I know, they can't resist." And someone would just, like for whatever reason, they would say, "You're doing a great job, Jenna," or "I can see you're really trying." And when we're doing so much of this by ourselves at home, it's not just the drain of sort of the days being the same, but we're so cut off from being seen around being seen through compassion, through compliments, through validation, through admiration, and I really felt that yesterday in a way that I haven't for a long time. And I just really want to keep emphasizing that, purple socks, someone just came and gave kind of a very typical comment along the lines of like, I'll just read it. Just leave. Your kids would be better off. Oh my goodness. My kids would never be better off with me. I'm a good mom. I know that. I know I'm a good mom. I know this live demonstrates that I'm a good mom. And you're a good mom too. If you can have these conversations, if you can be honest with yourself about the ways that you see your kids hurting, admitting these things is not the sign that you're a bad mom. Admitting these things is the sign that you're ready to be better than you were before. And that's a really beautiful thing. And it's the thing that my kids need the most. And it's the thing your kids need the most. And I just can't help ending with, if you only have grown children, it matters to them too, to hear you talk about the ways that you want to work to be better. Give them that gift too. Okay. I'm going to go enjoy Friday with my family. I made a crock pot meal. Actually, I think I'm going to take a second. Thank you for comments. I'm going to take a second and read back through them, because once I end this, they will disappear for me too. Layla's also working through an autism diagnosis in the teen years. I'm just shy of the teen years, but I'm almost there. And it's really hard. And it sounds like you understand how, like, the impacts of trying to function neurotypical when you're really neurodivergent. So much of the damage that we're seeing is from those attempts over and over and over again to cope and function in a manner or a style that is just outside of his capacity. I'm just Googling something. I'm Googling special needs social stories. That was oh yeah, there's a really, wow, that's fantastic. Thank you. Oh, I only have 2 minutes left. I'm glad that I'm ending here. Thank you so much for this recommendation. Like, there's a book called Teaching Social Skills to Children with Autism Using Minecraft. That sounds great. Oh, that's why sharing, it's so much better not to do it alone. It really, really is. Okay. Thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you, everyone. Have a great weekend. I know I will.